this lecture, we're going to talk about a concept called the zero product rule. It's hard to overstate how important this particular rule is when it comes to solving equations. We're going to be talking about it in the context of solving polynomial equations, but it applies to any kind of equation as long as you can factor it. Right? Doesn't matter how complicated the functions and the pieces are. If you can factor it, you can apply this rule to the two factors and hopefully come up with a solution. So you're going to be seeing this not just in an algebra class, not just as a tool for solving polynomial equations. It's going to come up over and over again throughout your mathematical career. So what is this rule? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Right? It says that if A and B are real numbers and the product of A and B is 0, then one of two things has to be true. Either A is equal to 0 or B is equal to 0. Right? And I want you to think about that for a minute. I want you to try doing this with numbers. All right? Let's say I pick a number for A. Let's say we have 3A equals 0. Is there any number you can put in there for A other than 0 that makes the equation true? Or let me ask it another way. Can you think of two numbers that aren't one of them 0, where when you multiply them together you do get 0? I think if you try to do that for just a minute in your head, right, running through some numbers, you'll see how this statement has to be true. So let's see how we can use this. Right, here I've got an example. I have two things multiplied together, and that product is 0. So the two things here, the A and the B, are the x minus 4 and the x minus 1. So what our zero product rule is saying is that one of two things has to be true. Either x minus 4 has to be 0, or x minus 1 has to be 0. And you notice what I did here. I took that equation that was looking kind of big and maybe a little intimidating, and I kind of played with it, and I reduced it down to something we already know how to work with. I turned it into two little linear equations. So the first one, I'll add 4 to both sides, and I get one solution, x equals 4. And on the second equation, I'll add 1 to both sides, and we get a second equation, x equals 1. So this particular equation has two solutions, right? Which is not unusual. I know this may be kind of a new thing for some of you, but it's not unusual for a solution to have more than one equation. For an equation to have more than one solution. All right, so let's look at another situation here. X squared minus 9x plus 14 equals 0. Okay, this does not look like our zero product rule situation. I do not have two things being multiplied together. I have three things being added and subtracted. Okay, so when you're faced with an equation like this, the first thing you need to ask yourself, can I factor it? Right? If you can factor it, then you're gonna end up with, what's the factored version of a polynomial look like? It's a bunch of factors multiplied together, and that's what I want. Right? So let's see if I can do that. I think this thing does factor. This is x minus 5. Nope, that's not 14. What am I saying? Let me try that again. How about x minus 7 times x minus 2? That equals 0. And now look at what I did. Exactly what I said I wanted to do. I've taken this polynomial equation and I've turned it into one thing that's going to be the a and another thing that's going to be the b multiplied together. So our zero product rule says either x minus 7, the first factor, equals 0, or x minus 2, that's our second factor, equals 0. So again, I get two answers, x equals 7 or x equals 2. Those are both solutions to that equation. And just like any equation that we try to solve, you can check your answers. In fact, let's do that real quick. Let's do it with 2. If I substitute 2 back into the original equation, this becomes 2 squared minus 9 times 2 plus 14. So let's see, 2 squared is 4 minus 18 plus 14. 4 minus 18 is minus 14. Minus 14 plus 14 is 0. There you go. Our answer checks. It did work. And you're welcome to do that with 7. You should see the same thing happen there. So this is the zero product rule in a nutshell. There's a lot more things to do with this. Some other things we need to be a little concerned about. And we're going to look at that and a bunch more examples in the next lecture in the series.